The ghost of a woman is haunting her friend. What does the restless spirit want from the woman? And what horrifying truth will be revealed? Don't miss out. Can the psychics prevent a dreadful crime? This is Psychic Investigations, a channel of exclusively true and impressive stories. Here, people who call themselves clairvoyants investigate tangled criminal cases and incredible mystical anomalies. Natália from Ukraine is asking the psychics for help because she's being haunted by the ghost of her deceased friend. The other woman's body was found in the well not far from Natália's home. Natália's late friend's name was Tatiana. Natália says that she first encountered her spirit in a nightmare.
I was falling into something like a pit or a well.
Suddenly, Natália saw her friend in the well. Her large blue eyes were filled with tears.
Her eyes were wide open. I'm still terrified to think of it.
And the following next day, Natália's 3-year-old son nearly died. She and little Danilo were feeding their horse when Natália felt someone's presence.
It felt like someone was standing behind me. I turned around, but there was no one there.
And the next moment, her son started crying and pointed at something invisible.
Fear filled his eyes as he was pointing there, saying, Mom, look, Mom, I'm scared."
Natália wanted to pick up the boy to calm him down. But at that moment, the horse got scared too. It reared up and accidentally struck little Danilo in the chest with its front hoof.
The horse nearly killed him. We rushed him to the hospital with his collarbone broken.
In the hospital, the boy recounted that near the stable, he got frightened by a terrifying woman who was staring at him and weeping. Natália is convinced it was the ghost of her deceased friend. However, back then, she couldn't even imagine that she would see her ghost in her yard a week later.
I was terrified at the time.
The dead Tatiana looked at Natália, crying, and seemed to be shouting something. Then, right before the mother's eyes, the heavy fence collapsed on the boy, who was playing nearby.
I heard him scream and then saw him under the fence.
The new fence, securely attached to the posts just a year ago, somehow came loose from its hinges and fell on the boy. Natália still can't understand how it could happen.
It's as if someone pulled it or pushed its top.
Little Danilo ended up in the intensive care unit. He had serious internal injuries.
I feared I would lose my child.
Miraculously, the boy survived and recovered. But Natália doesn't understand why her late friend keeps coming to her and why she's posing a threat to her son's life. After all, Natália and Tatiana were very close.
We were classmates and sat at the same desk. We were always together. I loved her very much.
But after school, their paths diverged. The only thing Natália knows is that several years ago, when Tatiana was 4 months pregnant, she left her home and disappeared. Later, the locals accidentally found her body in the abandoned well.
They searched for her for about 3 weeks, and then the students found her. There's a school nearby, and the well is over there.
How and why the young pregnant woman ended up in the well is still a mystery. Tatiana had no reason to take her own life. Moreover, she always dreamed of having a child. Yet, the police closed the case as a suicide. Does the late Tatiana want to tell her friend something about her death? Could it be the reason for her visits?
It can't be that she simply started haunting me. There must be a reason behind it.
Clairvoyants Olena Kurilova and Yaroslava Fedorova agreed to help 21-year-old Natália.
Yesterday I had a horrifying vision. There was a man in it and he threw a girl into a well.
It's strange. Natália's friend was found in a well, too. And now, Olena Kurilova sees a girl being thrown in there. What is that supposed to mean? Could there be 2 victims of the same killer? But who is that man?
The man is from Natália's family.
If somebody from Natália's family is involved in Tatiana's death, perhaps the other woman keeps coming from the other world, seeking for revenge. But who is the girl from the vision? I had a dream of a boy. In his eyes, I saw a reflection of a man attacking a woman. I thought maybe this boy witnessed Tetiana's murder. But who is he? This boy might help us save Natália.
Back then, no one yet knew that a series of gruesome murders, all driven by love, awaited us. Hello?
Hello. I'm afraid I could lose my son.
When I started working with Natália, I saw that her aura was gray. This happens when somebody is in deadly danger.
Does it mean that, apart from Natália's son, she's also in danger? But she claims that nothing is threatening her. Only her son is constantly at risk, while she just sees her friend's ghost every now and then.
Do you have Tetiana's photo?
There she is, standing behind her. She's thin, and you both look like each other.
Yes, she's standing behind me as if her hands are on my shoulders.
She says she took her own life.
A shocking revelation. So the pregnant woman committed suicide. But why?
Your pregnant friend killed herself because of love.
She's saying something. She really wanted this child. She wanted a family.
And then some conflict occurred.
Yes, that's true.
It turned out that shortly before her death, Tetiana told her friend that she'd had an argument with her husband. However, Natália still doesn't know the reason behind the fight.
The father of the baby said he didn't want it. He distanced himself and claimed that the baby wasn't his. I see him beat Tetiana. She cried and she shouted, but neither she nor her baby were wanted by anyone.
I saw her jump into the well. But the most terrifying part is that once she was in there, Tetiana realized she had made a dreadful mistake, and that she and her baby should live.
She tries to get out of the water.
She yells, asking for help.
But nobody hears her.
She regrets killing her baby.
But what does she want from me?
She's trying to warn you about danger.
The late Tetiana is trying to save her friend from death. However, her spirit's energy is so strong that she constantly provokes deadly situations for Natália's little son.
If we understand where the threat to Natália comes from, the spirit of her friend will stop coming and nothing will endanger the child. What's threatening Natália? A living person.
Wait, I think I'm having a vision. A man throws a little girl into a well. She's about 5 or 6 years old. And then I realized that it was a scene from Natália's past. It's you.
Yes.
Did somebody try to drown you in a well?
My stepfather grabbed me by the legs and swung me. And then he just let go. And I don't remember the rest.
It happened in the village where Natália was born and lived with her family.
It was when Mom wasn't home. The neighbor was in the garden and he saw him lowering me by the legs. He ran over with a ladder and took me out of there.
Little Natália nearly drowned in the ice-cold water. The girl suffered multiple injuries and spent a long time in the hospital.
He was trying to kill me.
It turned out that Natália's father left his family when she was only 4 years old. Her mother, Larissa, soon remarried a fellow villager, but the seemingly kind man quickly turned into a real monster.
I see wounds that look like burns, and a man's hand doing like this. What is this?
He extinguished matches on me. My entire body is scarred by cigarettes and matches. He choked me and tortured me. I screamed so much from the pain.
Natália says that the man tormented not only her, but also her 2 brothers.
Another vision. Burning coal. He's pushing you into it.
He tried to shove me in the stove to burn me.
My God, you've been through so much.
I don't even want to cry anymore. The tears fall on their own.
He was an awful monster.
He enjoyed doing it.
Yes. He constantly threatened Mom that he would do something terrible if she had him thrown in jail. But she went to the police anyway. They arrested him and put him in prison for 15 days. But then he was released and came back home. He broke down the door and said, "Either go out of the house or I'll set it on fire."
I understood that this scoundrel kept returning to his wife because she forgave him.
But why did the clairvoyants see Natalia's stepfather? Could it be that the threat is coming from him?
When I looked into Natalia's eyes, I saw her standing over someone's bloodied body, and then she fled in fear. I didn't want to continue the conversation outside, where people were already gathering.
Strangely enough, I didn't sense Natalia's or her family's energy in the room at all. It wasn't her house, and I couldn't understand why she was deceiving us. I was about to ask her this question, but then Olena said something that stunned me.
Your stepfather killed your mother.
Yes.
Oh God, were you there?
Yes. Mom and I were lying down. I had finished my home task, and Mom was knitting socks, and then he came.
It happened in 2008. The tyrant returned after yet another arrest for assaulting the children.
He said, "I'll stay for a couple of days." And Mom said, "I don't want to live with you. I'm calling the police." But he replied, "Oh, the police? Let's go talk."
He's not just a brute, he's an inhuman beast. He beat her terribly. He disfigured her.
He tore her to pieces.
She looked into his eyes and realized it was the end.
Then he came out covered in blood and said, "I killed your mother." And then he sat in the room and lit a cigarette.
This is unbelievable. Within minutes, the man brutally killed his wife, while her 3 children were in the adjacent room. And afterward, he stayed in her house, calmly smoking a cigarette, as if nothing had happened.
I saw her lying there, unrecognizable.
She was gasping, "Run."
Yes, I was little and I got scared, so I ran out of the house.
Oh my goodness.
I simply realized I had lost my mother. How could I go on without her? I loved her so much.
When did your mother die?
On Valentine's Day.
The man was arrested. He served 5 years in prison, but was released on parole for good conduct.
The killer of Natalia's mother is now free. Could it be the stepfather who poses a threat to her?
But I still had no answer to the question. Who was the boy I had seen in my dream? The one who witnessed the man attacking the woman? Where is your younger brother now?
Vadim was adopted by a family from the US. We were taken to different orphanages. They scattered us like dogs, each to a different place.
The children were distributed among different orphanages due to their different ages.
You stayed all alone. What horrors Natalia and her brothers went through as children. Her youngest brother was only 4 years old when he witnessed the murder of his mother. But the card said he wasn't the boy from my dream. What's this?
The books fell. I got scared and shocked. They fell off the shelf.
I immediately realized it was the spirit of Natalia's mother, and she also felt her presence.
Could it be a sign from her?
She loves you so much.
I know. I love her too.
The deceased woman looked at me crying. She couldn't speak because her face was disfigured. I asked her spirit, "Is the threat coming from your murderer?" But she shook her head. Quiet, quiet, quiet. The spirit pointed to a woman standing in the crowd by the window. A woman's spirit pointed to you. She was this woman's mother. Do you know her?
I live in the next house, but I've never seen her before.
What's your name?
Yulia.
You don't know her either, do you?
I don't.
Natália, it's not your house, is it?
I didn't sense Natália's or her family's energy in this room at all. It wasn't her home.
The house isn't mine.
This is incredible. Whose house is this then? And why did Natália invite the clairvoyants here?
I had a horrifying vision with Yulia. A man's hand stabbing you with a knife. Yulia, who is this?
My husband.
Did he stab you?
5 knife wounds.
Just like Natália's mother, this woman was also attacked by a man she lived with and loved.
When that woman told me that she had been stabbed with a knife, I felt a shiver.
Yulia, why?
I didn't want to live with him.
Like my mother.
It happened on April 25th, 2016. There were no signs of trouble. He was working abroad, and he didn't even inform me he was coming home.
Yulia explains that by the time of the tragedy, she and her husband had lived together for 10 years and had a 6-year-old son, but their relationship had long been strained.
He had a young mistress. She kept calling me, telling me to let him go.
Yulia didn't want to live with an unfaithful husband.
I asked him to leave me alone. He couldn't accept that. He kept calling me, saying he loved me, and then out of a sudden, he decided to come home. He rang the doorbell, and I answered the door. My son and I were home. I asked, "Why did you come?" He asked me to give him something to eat.
Like he got hungry after a long way home?
Exactly, yes. He took the boy in his arms and told him, "You and your mom will visit my grave." But the boy is only 6. I got upset and pulled him out of his arms, and I told him, "Go away." But he ran to the kitchen and reappeared with the knife and began stabbing me.
Yulia's husband tried to kill her for the same reason as Natália's stepfather killed her mother. Because she didn't want to live with him anymore.
And your little son, he somehow protected you.
He saved me. He pulled at him from behind and shouted, "Daddy, don't touch Mommy!" And he stepped back. Then I grabbed my son's hand and ran out of the apartment, knocking on all doors and asking people for help.
The neighbors called an ambulance and the police. In the hospital, Yulia nearly died from severe bleeding. She spent 2 days on the brink of life and death, but survived in the end. Yulia's husband was arrested and sentenced to 6 years in prison.
This is the boy I saw in my dream before the investigation. It was Yulia's little son. But why did I see him in the dream? I looked into the cards and froze. Natália's child might soon witness the same violence that Yulia's son did, the father's abuse of the mother. The threat to you is coming from your husband.
Does your husband beat you?
Yes.
Natália explains that she met her husband, Hrihori, right after leaving the orphanage. They fell in love and soon got married. At first, took care of Natália, but then everything changed.
He throws me on the bed and either hits me or yells. Then he hugs me and says, "I don't know what came over me." He can easily cripple or kill me.
And the most disgusting thing is that Natália's husband takes advantage of the fact that there's no one to protect her from his violence.
He often tells her, "Where will you go? Who will accept you? Who in the world needs you but me?"
Natália says she won't leave her husband simply because she has nowhere else to go.
So I just endure it.
Natália is afraid she might repeat her mother's tragic fate.
It's like I'm going through what she went through. Even my little son understands that things aren't good in our family.
If Natália's husband isn't stopped, it could end very badly for her and for her son.
Why are we in someone else's house? Is it because of Grigori?
Yes. He yelled at me, threatening, "I'll beat you."
A few days ago, Natália told her husband that she'd sought help from the psychics to protect their son. When he learned about it, Hrihori once again assaulted her. This is why Natália decided to deceive him, pretending she was visiting her friend.
My friend helped me rent the house.
The next day, because of icy rain and slippery roads, the clairvoyants and Natália barely made it to the village where she lives with her family to talk to her husband, but it was in vain.
I don't harm anyone. I'll handle it myself.
If you don't wish to lose her and your son, and if you want to avoid prison, never raise your hand against her.
It's going to be all right.
The man didn't hear us. He won't change his attitude toward his wife.
As we were bidding farewell to each other, I whispered to Natália, "Take the boy and run."
A month after the investigation, Natália called our office and told us she had made a difficult decision and found courage to leave her husband.
I found a job and I am working now. Everything is going fine. I finally feel happy. I'm really grateful to you and the clairvoyants.
Of course, family is the most important thing for each of us. It should be cherished and valued. However, it's not worth saving a family at the cost of your own life.
If you're impressed by the story, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Many more amazing investigations by the psychics are coming up.